Well, how couldn't we be, Matt? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can speak for all young men in Britain, but what I can do is talk about my own experience of growing up in this country in the 21st century, because we are simultaneously told and have been educated to believe that satisfaction and fulfillment in one's life is to be found in the pursuit of limitless self-expression, whether that manifests in a left-wing way, in the kind of pursuit of, a kind of individual sort of self-expression, as I say, whether that's in gender or sexuality or race or anything else, or in a right-wing way, in the pursuit of a kind of career and in the endless accumulation of wealth. And that is where we have been taught to believe satisfaction and meaning and belonging are to be found, whilst simultaneously having been told that if we are white, if we are male, and if we are heterosexual, we are, congenitally evil, and we should be ashamed of ourselves for the sins of our ancestors. And if you combine those two things, I don't think it's any surprise that you have an entire generation of men who have grown up without a sense of purpose, without a sense of place, and who are increasingly feeling a sense of resentment towards the system as it is currently constituted. And I think there's levels to this.
Can I just pick you up on one thing, which is this idea that the social contract is broken? Now, some viewers will be familiar with the social contract meme that has been going around the internet for some time, showing a 30-year-old young male professional basically losing out in the social contract at every turn. He's having to, essentially work in order to subsidise people who are breaking the country's laws. He's having to work to subsidise baby boomers who, of course, enjoyed final salary pensions, is often not able to live in London or the big cities because he can't afford to. I mean, why is it that this social contract has been so devastating for young men in particular?
Well, I think this is crucial, Matt, because there is levels to this sickness, and I think that the most immediate and visible symptom of this sickness is exactly what you're talking about, which is the fact that we have an economy that makes it, for one thing, very difficult for a lot of people to find jobs. When they do find jobs, frequently they are unfulfilling, and the wages that they pay are going down, and the taxes that they pay at the end of the day are going up to pay for things that don't benefit them in any way, whether that's endless foreign aid, endless asylum costs, subsidizing the presence of foreigners in their country, paying for their foreign aid, paying for, as we revealed this week, the translation costs of those claiming universal credit. Think about how insane that is. We have a system where the average person pays about a third of their income, like myself, in taxes to pay for the millions of pounds in translation costs for those who can't speak English, who are claiming benefits, right? And so when you talk about the social contract, I mean, that doesn't sound like a social contract to me. That sounds like exploitation, right? But that's just the most immediate, visible, and sort of immediately felt aspect of this problem. Because I think that ultimately what is being expressed in this research is something far deeper. It's something spiritual. It is a loss of identity, a loss of a sense of belonging, a loss of a sense of duty among young men. Because I think the central principle of masculinity is duty and self-mastery and service to others. Yet we have been told and taught in our kind of modern Western culture that any expression of masculinity is everywhere and always an evil thing, and something that has to be kind of suppressed because it's dangerous.
Just briefly, if you can, Charlie, as well. I mean, looking, for example, at some of the other devastating stats that we've seen recently, particularly drawn from freedom of information requests, issues around sexual violence, sexual assaults, often, to be frank, committed by people who are not from this country. Do you think there's something psychologically playing into this as well? The fact that perhaps many men in this country feel as though even when they do protest about those things, they're also simultaneously derided by our Prime Minister as far right, as dangerous, as toxic, that there's sort of a deeper feeling of dispossession that seems to be running through men in this country.
That is a really interesting point. And I would love to believe that British men en masse are feeling a sense of injustice about the way in which our women are being treated by both the migrant populations that have arrived here primarily in the last 30 years, and indeed the state that governs us, which seems to act against our interests at every turn. But I don't actually know whether the sense of dispossession and the sense of dissatisfaction and anger with the system as it is currently constituted would even extend that far. I think that men are just looking at their own lives. They're looking at their economic prospects, their living situation, the fact that they're never going to be able to own a house, if things continue as they are. They're never going to be able to find a girlfriend or a wife because there is such a divide between the sexes, and so many men and women report real difficulty in finding somebody with whom they share values, with whom they feel they can build a life. And again, deeper than that, Matt, I think is this kind of loss of masculinity, this suppression of masculinity, which indeed one expression of that is an inability to defend our women. But actually, it's a culture that's taken aim at the very concept of duty and has sought to center duty in essentially the state, to replace the man, to replace the patriarch with the state.
Thank you.